Hey, Paul Lynn here. Today, talking to you about some fitness related topics. And the one I'm going to give you today, this is something that a lot of us get wrong. And we get it wrong over and over again. Okay? This is something that when you hear it, you're going to say, you know what? That's not me. I'm Superman. I cannot possibly be guilty of what you're saying. Or you say, oh no, I know what that's like already, but I'm going to tell you, this thing is bigger than you think. It's more dangerous than you think. It's also more subtle than you think. What I'm talking about today is a sneaky bastard, which will sneak into your fitness regimen and screw you up. I'm talking about overtraining. Okay? Now, when you're talking about training in general, the old idea is more is always better. You just gotta train, do more every day, longer every day, faster every day, heavier every day. That's how you get results. The overload principle, right? It always has to be more, and that's what forces your body to continually adapt and improve. The overload principle, boys and girls, is 100% true. Do you need to increase your workload and your performance, levels in order to cause your body to adapt and get better? Yes, you do. That's true. Okay? So what's the problem? The problem is not giving your body a chance to perform that adaptation. You're training, you're stimulating your body, right? Where there's a stimulus, there is a response, okay? And there is a cost to absorbing all that stimulus, and there's a cost to responding to that stimulus. All right? Whenever I go and I hit the gym and I lift weights, my body needs time to recover from that. It needs time to heal, and it needs time to respond to that stimulus by growing. And my neuromuscular system needs to adapt to the work that I'm doing. And on top of that, my entire cardiovascular system and my muscles themselves need to recover and adapt to the load that's placed on them. Something you don't realize maybe is that, let's say today is the day that I do chest, and so I go and I do a ton of bench press, just bench press. I do some cable crossovers, I do some flies. I just whack my chest to death, right? Okay, now here's the question. What needs to recover? Do my quadriceps need to recover? Or do my pectoral muscles need to recover? Well, if you're anything smart at all, you're going to say, oh yeah, your pecs need to recover. And if you know a little bit more, you're going to say, oh, your pecs need to recover, but you also used your triceps, you also used your shoulders, you probably also engaged your abs a little bit and your core muscles. So, depending on what moves you were doing, and, if you were standing up and pulling down and stuff, there's a lot of different muscles that could have been involved. Okay, that's all true. But here's the thing. What you might not realize is when I hit one muscle, yes, there's a local recovery that needs to happen. There was a load that I put on that muscle, and that load is going to be there for a few days. But there's also a systemic load that I have induced on my entire body by training just my chest. Okay? So that's the thing you have to realize. Something like lifting weights, and this isn't only talking about weightlifting. I'm just using this as a simple example. But when I lift and I only isolate one muscle or one group of muscles, yes, there is a local response that happens. There's also a systemic response that happens. Because while those muscles are working, my nervous system is also working to support those muscles. It's also working on my entire endocrine system to stimulate the release of the right hormones, to regulate my metabolism, to regulate my protein synthesis, and all of that good stuff I'm causing by training my chest. And then there's also all of the resources that I'm depleting from all different parts of my body. Wherever blood flows, that's where the resources come from, even if they're only being used right here. Do you realize that? If you're just training one muscle, you're not just depleting resources from one area. You're depleting resources from your whole body, everywhere blood flows. That's where the resources come from, everywhere the blood flows. And blood flows in your earlobes, okay? So you are literally depleting your earlobes when you're lifting weights with your chest. How messed up is that, all right? So there's a systemic load that you're putting on your body. And if you're training in such a way that you're not allowing yourself to recover, oh, well, my chest feels fine. That's great. But have you given your whole body a chance to recover? Well, I train 7 days a week, but I do different muscles every day. So I don't train my chest again for 7 days. It's got plenty of time to recover. Man, that's great. But what about your systemic load? If you're training every day, when does your whole system, your whole body, when does it get to recover? Oh, I didn't know it needed to. Okay? So when you're talking about any kind of training, I don't care if it's cardio, I don't care if it's resistance, I don't care if it's yoga, I don't care what kind of training you're doing, there is a systemic load involved. And it's not just a matter of, well, my muscles don't hurt, so I must be fine. You've got to give your body a chance to recover. Now, with that in mind, what are the signs and symptoms of overtraining? Because based on this explanation, if you understand it correctly, you're probably sitting here thinking, yeah, I'm not really sure how to detect systemic load and a lack of recovery and overload of my body. I pay attention to the muscles I use. I'm a cyclist. If my legs and my ass don't hurt, it's fine to ride again. But yeah, is there something systemic? This is how you can identify it. I'm going to give you some of the signs. Number one, the first sign that you're overtraining is boredom. Okay? Boredom. When you're training and you just feel blasé about it, at the beginning of the week, you were excited, you were ready to lift, you were ready to ride your bike, you were ready to slap on your backpack and go rucking 10 miles. You were ready. And by about your third session of the week, you're doing it. You don't feel bad or anything. You're nothing sore, but you're just bored with it. Guess what? Boredom isn't something necessarily that just comes from, oh, I do this so much that it's not enjoyable anymore. No, that's your brain telling you something, right? When it was ready for the stimulus, your mind was asking you for it. It was releasing hormones, endorphins that are saying, do it, do it, do it. It's going to feel good. It's what I need. And now it's not producing that. You're not getting that dopamine effect anymore. Now it's gone. And you're just like, couldn't really care less, but I guess I'm supposed to, so I'll do it. So the first sign that you're overtraining is when your training is starting to get boring. Second sign that you might be overtraining is soreness and or weakness. All right? Now, there's a difference here. You've heard the expression, no pain, no gain, right? That is true. When you lift weights, or run or whatever you're doing, you're going to push those muscles enough that you're getting into the territory where they're like, oh, this is a little bit more than I'm used to. And there's going to be a little bit of soreness afterwards. You're going to feel a little bit weak afterwards. That's normal. That's good. That's healthy. That's okay. But the next day, maybe, if you had a pretty good session the day before, maybe you still feel a little something the next day. But not like, oh, yesterday was leg day. Oh, I got out of bed this morning. Oh, my legs are busted. You overtrained. Simple as that, right? You get a good leg workout today, tomorrow, maybe like your legs feel okay. You can tell you did a little something. It's not till like you try to climb some stairs or walk up a hill or something, or like sit down in a low seat. Then you're like, oh yeah, okay, I got my legs yesterday. Now I can feel it. And by the next day, that should be gone, okay? And by the time you train that same muscle again, it goes without saying, you shouldn't feel anything bad in those muscles. Those muscles should feel fine. What about running? What about cycling? What about swimming? It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. If you're feeling weak the day after you trained, that's a sign of overtraining. There's a difference from, oh yeah, I can tell I'm not 100% today. That's healthy. But when you feel weak, you're like, oh, I can't even do anything. I can't lift. I can't stand up. I couldn't do one lunge right now if you asked me to. Classic overtraining. And it's going to cost you. You think no pain, no gain. But what you don't realize is too much pain, also no gain. Or even worse, too much pain, lost results. Okay? Overtraining won't just prevent you from getting results. It can also undo and reverse your results and send you moving in the wrong direction on performance or growth, whatever you're working towards. All right? So take this seriously, because what I'm selling you today is something really nice. You could be probably training less and getting even better results. Okay? So pay attention to these signs. We've got weakness and soreness. If you're feeling too weak and too sore the next day, or heaven forbid, it's carrying over a couple of days, and once in a while after a competition, or once a week I really kill it or something, that's okay. You're giving yourself some recovery. But if this is something that's happening 2 or 3 days a week or more, you are overtraining. Speaking of results, third sign that you're overtraining is you ain't getting no results. All right? So what does it take to improve, for your body to adapt in a healthy way to training stimulus? Well, you need to be working hard enough to challenge your body. You need to be resting and recovering enough in between training sessions that your body has a chance to adapt and give you the results you're after. And number 3, you got to be eating right, and you've got to be giving your body what it needs to facilitate that recovery, i.e. recharging its glycogen stores, synthesizing protein, replenishing the vitamins and minerals that were depleted, all of that stuff, right? So training, rest, and food, nutrition. You got those 3 things in check, you're going to get results. But what happens if you're not getting results? You've been training week after week faithfully, and you can tell you're not improving. You're not getting faster. The workload doesn't feel any easier. Your body's not asking for more weight. Your measurements are staying the same. Well, obviously, I mentioned there are three, pieces to this equation. And, if you're not sleeping, that means your body can't recover quickly. And that means you need to be training less because your other life habits aren't there facilitating the workload that you're doing. So you could eat better and sleep more, and then maybe the training you're doing now would not be overtraining. But as things stand today, you're training in an amount that you're not eating for and you're not resting for. So are you overtraining? I mean, yes. You're not eating enough. Maybe you're sleeping great, but you're not feeding yourself properly. Well, are you overtraining? I mean, I'm not saying that's the problem, but the fact of the matter is you're training more than your diet will allow you to accommodate. So, yes, you could eat better and eat more, but as things stand, you are training more than your diet allows, so you are overtraining. So, very, very simple. If you're not getting results, I mean, maybe you're not training enough. If you get done with a session, you don't feel anything afterwards, you don't feel anything the next day, you could do this thing twice a day, 6 days a week, and it wouldn't affect you. You're just not training enough. You're not stimulating yourself. You're not challenging your body in any meaningful way. And that's really easy to identify because, if you're standing there checking your phone at the gym and lifting the bunny weights and, you don't feel anything, you don't ever work up a sweat or anything like that, you're not even training, you're just exercising, okay? That's a different story. But if you are training hard, you are breaking a sweat, you are grunting under the weights a little bit, you are having to stand up on your bicycle to push a little harder and get there, in time, okay, you're training. And if you're not getting results, you're probably overtraining. Next sign, next way to identify that you might be overtraining is something I call exercise panic, okay? Not a catchy name, but if you think about this, this is almost certainly something you have experienced at some point in your life, and you're going to say, oh, yeah, I never thought of that as like some kind of syndrome or a warning sign, but yeah, I've been there before. You feel great. You wake up, you feel great, you feel strong, you're fine, you've got no excuse in the world to skip your workout. And you say, I'm going to work out at 2 p.m. today. And you look at your watch and, ooh, look at that. It's 1:49. Time for me to start putting my clothes on. And as soon as you start getting dressed for your workout, you're like, oh man, my bladder, my butt. I got to go to the toilet. And you start just feeling this anxiety. You're like, well, isn't there something else I was supposed to be doing? My body feels fine, but man, I just really all of a sudden don't want to train, And the first thing that's going to tell you is, yeah, like I said, you're going to want to go to the toilet or you're going to feel a little bit nauseous or something. That's exercise panic. Your body is smarter than your brain sometimes. Your body knows that it is not recovered. It's still under a systemic load. It knows that it can't accommodate all of the training you're trying to throw at it. And it's real easy to get into this predicament, actually. It doesn't take like 3 hours a day, 6 days a week to get into that. 1 hour a day consecutively for 3 or 4 days, and you can easily find yourself in this situation depending on how hard you're training and what kind of variation you have in your fitness regimen. But yeah, when all of a sudden it's time to work out and you suddenly feel differently about it, you suddenly feel the need to go to the bathroom 6 times, you suddenly just feel tired or something like that, and it wasn't there, an hour ago, that's exercise panic, and that is a definite sign you're overtraining. Next sign that you're overtraining is irregular sleep patterns. Like we've already talked about, your body needs to sleep in order to recover. It needs lots and lots of good quality sleep if you're throwing lots and lots of good quality training at it. All right? Most of your recovery, most of your results, most of your body's adaptations happen when your eyes are closed and your eyeballs are wiggling around in your head and you're dreaming about who knows what kind of freaky, nasty stuff you dream about. But that's the time that your body is actually generating those results. It's not when you're training. It's not when you're sitting down at the table eating. It's not when you're sitting in your chair at the office. Your results happen when you're asleep, okay? Now, what happens if all of a sudden you get to this position where you trained, you worked hard all day, you think, "Woo, I'm going to sleep like a baby tonight." And you go to sleep and you just lay there. Your body is in shock from all of the training and you can't even fall asleep because your nervous system is still firing like crazy. All right? You are overtraining, and you're overtraining so much that your body's freaking out and it's not going to be able to recover at all. So what are you going to do? Wake up the next day, even though you barely even slept an hour, and then go and put 2 more hours worth of training load on your system? Brilliant, really smart. You're going to injure yourself. You're going to burn yourself out. You're going to reverse your results. That's stupid for 100 reasons. Not to mention, you're probably going to end up making yourself sick because that lack of sleep is going to affect your immune system as well. So, you've got to listen to your body. You've got to learn to recognize these signs if you're anything serious about training. But, okay, not enough sleep, that's a problem. Another sign that you might be overtraining is too much sleep, all right? Don't get me wrong. The more you can sleep, the better if you're trying to get results from training. Honestly, I don't think there is an upper limit on how much you can sleep. The more you can sleep, the more you can train, assuming you're eating properly. The more you sleep, the more you can train and the better results you'll get. That's a fact. But what happens if, hey, you can't go to sleep until 11 o'clock at night and your alarm goes off at 7 because you've got to get up and get your happy ass to school or to work or wherever it is you go. And there's not enough time there. And then throughout the day, all of a sudden you're starting to feel sluggish and you're dozing off at work and you can't stay awake for a meeting. What's going on, right? You're overtraining. Maybe the answer is, yes, you need to sleep more. But if your schedule doesn't allow you to sleep more, then you're going to have to dial back that training because you can't accommodate it. Your body is not going to have a chance to adapt to as much as you're doing. Lower the intensity, lower the frequency, whatever you need to do. But if you're feeling tired throughout the day and you feel like you need to take a nap every couple of hours and stuff like that, if you have the kind of lifestyle that permits you to sleep as much as you want, great. Sleep, enjoy it, and keep right on training. But if you're not able to sleep as much as your body is asking for, you need to dial back the training. Last sign that you're overtraining, and this is something that unless you have a device like a smartwatch or something like that that can reliably measure this for you, you're not going to be able to perceive it. But this is something called heart rate variability, okay? In very simple terms, we think about our heart rate as being very consistent. Ba-bum, 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 whatever, right? Fact is, it's not always that consistent, and the time between heartbeats is different between each 2 heartbeats, okay? So, maybe there was only 52 milliseconds in between these 2 heartbeats, and then there was 53 milliseconds between these 2, and there whatever that is. And because of that difference, there's a measurement called heart rate variability. That's measuring the time between heartbeats and how much that difference in time, how much that gap changes over time. Does that make sense? If your heart rate is really consistent, just keeping beat like a drummer, right? Then you're going to have a very low heart rate variability because it's not varying very much. But if your heart beats, these two are close and these two are further apart, and then these two are in the middle and these two are further apart, okay, that's a higher heart rate variability. And if you don't understand, if you don't know about heart rate variability, it would be logical that you think, well, low variability is good. That means everything's very consistent. High variability is bad. That means everything's going crazy. Strangely enough, the exact opposite is true. Whenever your body is freaking out and it's under a lot of stress and it has a high recovery load, it performs more like a machine. It becomes more consistent and the heart rate variability drops down really low. Whereas whenever you're low stress, there's not a lot of load on your body, everything's been replenished, everything's recovered, now your heartbeat's just like, don't really care. Maybe I'll beat now, maybe a couple of seconds from now. Whenever I feel like it. And your variability goes up. So if you have a watch or something that measures your heart rate variability, ideally while you're sleeping, that is going to be a great indicator that you can look at those charts and graphs and you can see how your heart rate variability is performing. If it's going up over time, that's a good sign that your fitness is improving and you're not overtraining and you're doing great. But when you see that declining and you're down like 20% or so on your variability and it's kind of staying down there, that's a sign that your body is under a high systemic load and you're not giving it a chance to recover. Okay? Why am I telling you about all of this? Because overtraining will do three things. One, it'll injure you. Okay? There are a lot of different parts of this magnificent creation that we call our bodies that can break and can be depleted and deteriorated by overtraining, and any which thing is called an injury. I don't want you to injure yourself. You don't want to injure yourself. Second thing that's going to happen is you're not going to get results, okay? If you're investing the time and effort and energy and money and everything else into training, I want you to get results. I want you to improve and get better, faster, and stronger and bigger and whatever it is you're going for. What's the point in investing if there's no return, right? Duh. Third thing is you're going to burn out. And I'm not a fan of anybody burning out. If you have any interest and love for exercise and or training whatsoever, I want you to enjoy it and have fun with it, and I want you to still be doing it 5 years from now and 10 years from now, because you're probably going to live longer, you're probably going to be healthier, you're probably going to have a higher quality of life by being in this thing on the permanent, right? And yeah, if you overload your system and you stay there, like I said, it's going to go from enthusiasm to boredom to one day you're going to wake up and you're just going to be like, oh, to hell with this. And no matter how much you try to convince yourself, your body and your brain are just going to be like, nope, we ain't going back to that damn gym, And you're going to burn out and you're going to be out of this and it's going to take you a year or two to recover before you're really ready to try again. And then you're probably just going to repeat the same mistake. I don't want you to burn out. I don't want you to injure yourself. And I definitely do want you to get results. So please pay attention to this thing called overtraining. More and harder is not always the right answer. And if you're seeing these signs, you need to take it seriously and modify your regimen, modify your diet, your sleep patterns, and your training. Because think about it. If you're overtraining, what could be better than if someone comes up and says, hey, you could train less and simultaneously get better results? What the hell? Isn't that like the dream come true? Think about it. Pay attention to these signs. They will guide you to getting better results. That's it. That's what I got for you today. If you like it, please click the like button on your way out the door. Also, if you say, damn, Paul, you're filling my head with good stuff, this is going to help me. Well, I'll keep doing it if you click the subscribe button. But if you don't subscribe, how are you going to get all the rest of the good stuff I've got for you? So subscribe, do yourself a favor, do me a favor, and keep getting all this, because I'm only here trying to make you better. Thank you so much for watching. Cheers from Bolivia. You take care now.